Fellow denizens of the World Wide Web, thank you for joining me. In this video, we're going to be looking at a non-expert's opinion on the top 10 movies based on video games. It's me, I'm the non-expert. A few quick bits before we dive into the countdown. I won't be including movies based on fictional games like Free Guy, Ready Player One, or Wreck-It Ralph, because let's be real, if they were included, they would be the top 3, and it's not really fair. As we know, movies based on video games have generally not been great. It wasn't until recent years when we started to get quality films based on gaming properties. So of course, most of the films on this list won't be, let's just say they weren't the best movies. That being said, for fans of the properties, every film on here was fun to watch at least once. Okay, that's a lie. Some of these are horrible and a lot of people are gonna hate me for this list, but let's go. So at number 10, I have The Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. This 2010 Disney-produced action romp starred Jake Gyllenhaal as the titular Prince Dastan, as he goes on a fun, albeit flawed adventure to unravel a mystery that threatens to tear apart the royal family. After finding the magical dagger, yes, that magical dagger, the one that allows Dastan to traverse time, Dastan is framed for the murder of his adopted father, King Shahraman. And he, along with the Princess Tamina of the holy city of Alamut, must prove his innocence and stop his evil uncle Nazim, played by Ben Kingsley. The film has some good production values and decent acting. It's a decent adaptation of the game overall. It was a fun watch, but definitely not worthy of any awards, that's for sure. I feel like fans of the Prince of Persia games could enjoy this one, but overall it wasn't a great film, and that's why it's at number 10. Next up at number 9, I'm going with Lara Croft: Tomb Raider. This one might just be nostalgia for me, but I genuinely enjoyed this movie as a kid. This 2001 action flick saw Angelina Jolie suit up as Lara Croft and take down the Illuminati. While it's been years since I've watched this one, I remember it being fairly well done. Solid action sequences for the time and an okay story. Jolie played a great Lara Croft, and it done well enough to spawn a sequel that was of similar quality. This was a time when video game adaptations were almost unheard of, and I'm not sure they really knew how to approach the source material, but for 2001, I find that it did enough to get the job done. Alright, on to number 8. Here, I'm slapping down Silent Hill. This 2006 supernatural horror film loosely follows the plot of the first game, but changes a few things around. Instead of following widowed father Harry Mason on a vacation to Silent Hill, the movie follows a mother and her adopted daughter as they seek help for the daughter's strange sleepwalking disorder. Yeah, it's not as good as the game. The game overall had the better setup, but what can you do? However, the movie nails the atmosphere of the games and includes Pyramid Head, which is a win. Even if he was a bit silly, hey, it's a guy literally called Pyramid Head. I can't fault them too much for the wonky transition to film. Overall, Silent Hill was a decent suspenseful horror movie, and as a fan of the first game, it was an okay watch. Alright, we're slowly getting to some slightly better movies here. At number 7, I'm gonna cheat a little bit, and I'm putting both the classic 95 Mortal Kombat and the recent HBO Max adaptation as well.
There burns the fury of a warrior.
Mortal Kombat is one of the only fighting games to manage a halfway coherent plot. It's over the top and silly as all hell, but it has some solid characters and is a fun concept. The 95 film had a better plot than the more recent MK film in my opinion, but as it was from 1995, it had some pretty iffy effects. Christopher Lambert plays a pretty decent Raiden, and Robin Shou really embodies Liu Kang. And Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa did a pretty good Shang Tsung. Then we have the more recent Mortal Kombat that came to HBO Max during the peak of the pandemic.
When we got there, it tore through our unit in seconds.
It's about as good as the 95 film, but for totally separate reasons, which is why I have them tied here. The plot follows a new character that doesn't exist in the game. He's a distant relative of Scorpion, and the movie basically just uses him as a plot device to push us along while meeting the traditional Mortal Kombat cast. But the fights and effects were really well done in my opinion, and I enjoyed the backstory between Hanzo and Bi-Han. While the 95 movie does better at focusing on the actual tournament, the new Mortal Kombat does a solid job developing a story they can continue forward with. Overall, neither are great films, but hey, we take what we can get. Alright, heading on to number 6, it's the Warcraft movie. This film is not based on the ever popular MMO World of Warcraft, but instead chose to follow the original strategy title, Warcraft Orcs and Humans. The game was pretty light on plot, so I'm thinking that writer-director Duncan Jones chose to follow the first game to avoid risking alienating the drones of rabid World of Warcraft fans. This gave him a lot of freedom with how he developed the film's plot. The film itself does a good job with the world and is a fun watch. The effects are well done, and overall, as a fan of the franchise, it was great to see Warcraft on the big screen. Travis Fimmel played Anduin Lothar, and as a fan of Fimmel's, I think he did a pretty good job. The film is mostly your basic human versus orc battleground that we've seen in a lot of fantasy films, but it does have a slight twist by including half-orc Garona and showing her struggles of trying to unite the two races at war. Warcraft is by no means a great movie, but it was good enough and a fun watch.
They're stronger. Be smarter.
Alright, we're in the top 5. I'm honestly astonished at how mid the films are still at this point. Most of these movies are okay to watch once, but unless you're a fan, I doubt you rewatch anything discussed so far. But I promise we're slowly getting to some quality films. At number 5, I'm going with Uncharted. I know, how is Uncharted good enough to be number 5, you're probably asking? Well, it is and it isn't. But as a video game adaptation, it's pretty true to the franchise it's based on and has heaps of fan service. With scenes and sequences taken directly from the game and a well-acted cast, well, as well acted as it could be with the writing they were working with. Overall, it did a good job at being a movie version of the Uncharted games. The games all have a solid story, but story alone has never been what made us fall in love with the Uncharted franchise. It's the fact that they are fun, well-done games with great pacing and great gameplay. The game is carried by its set pieces and lovable characters, and while I still can't get on board with Marky Mark Sully, he basically just plays himself the whole movie.
Don't touch your ear like that, you look like an idiot.
I do think the movie excels at the characters in the same way the games do. Nonsense dialogue like this notwithstanding.
I'm a friend of Sully's.
Sully doesn't have any friends. I should know him one of them.
Is it as good as the games? Not even close. Not even a little bit. But as a movie trying to recreate some of the moments from the games, it does a pretty decent job. It was also an important step in Sony pushing its gaming franchises to other mediums, which has recently led up to the absolutely phenomenal The Last of Us show. So I'll definitely be excited to see what Sony Pictures can do if an Uncharted 2 movie ever gets the go-ahead. Okay, this one I did have at 5 initially, but after rewatching the films while editing this video, I knew there was no way Uncharted should beat it out, so at number 4, it's Resident Evil. I'm sure some of you were wondering when this would pop up. Resident Evil was the first video game film that I think did a good job riding the line between the games and being a good movie. It's hard to condense a 10+ hour game into a 2-hour film, and Resident Evil was the first to actually kind of pull it off. Releasing back in 2002, it followed the story of new character Alice, played by Mila Jovovich, as she fought to save the world from the sins of the evil Umbrella Corp. I know I butchered your name, it's fine, whatever. The film includes a lot of the plot staples from the game series, like the T-Virus creating the undead, and it being set in, or in this case, underneath Raccoon City. The movie was a genuinely good thriller and had some really solid moments. It took a lot of what made the game series so unnerving and applied it well to the big screen. They had a good amount of fan service, with infected creatures like the infamous Licker making an appearance. It also has plenty of campy nonsense that holds it back a bit, or makes it better depending on who you ask. But overall, it struck a good balance between horror and action, and went on to spawn a 6-film franchise, so I'd say it was pretty successful. I'd say the Resident Evil movies can definitely be credited with keeping video game adaptations alive through a lot of the 2000s. Alright, here we are, the top 3, and finally we arrive at some really great movies. Movies that are actually good without me having to explain why I like them or without any disclaimers. So at number 3, it's Final Fantasy Advent Children. Well, it's actually Final Fantasy Advent Children, the Complete Edition. We don't talk about the initial release. Not that it was bad, but Complete Edition is just so much better. Advent Children takes place 2 years after the events of Final Fantasy VII. Main character Cloud once again has to battle it out with Sephiroth to save the planet. This time things are a bit different though, as Cloud has absolutely zero interest in helping, and Sephiroth is only living through Kadaj, Laz, and Yazoo. a trio of villains that are the physical manifestation of Sephiroth's surviving spirit. Of course, this all comes down to Cloud having to help anyways and ending up in a knockdown drag-out final battle with Sephiroth after Kadaj fuses with the remnants of Jenova and becomes Sephiroth reincarnated. The animation here is top-notch. The story is great, the way it wraps up the story of Final Fantasy VII is phenomenal, and the movie gives us plenty of great moments with all of our favorite characters. Overall, Advent Children is one of the best movies based on a video game. But I mean, come on, if anyone can make a CGI movie that kicks ass, it's Square Enix. Again, none of these movies are winning any Oscars, but as far as video game adaptations go, this one was pretty solid. Well, we're finally there. We finally made it to the very few great video game movies that we've gotten over the years. Advent Children was great, but these next two are legitimate big budget films that actually managed to be truly great movies. So coming in at number 2, Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Do I look like I need your power?
This was pretty hard. I almost put Sonic 2 at number 1, and honestly, it could be justified. Sonic 2 is a phenomenal movie. It takes everything they learned from the first film and really nails what a Sonic movie should be. After a very iffy initial reveal, the first Sonic turned out to be great fun, but it was a bit flawed. Sonic 2 fixes almost all of those issues. It does still have a weird side story about the humans that Sonic lives with, and it does derail the film just a little bit, but it's never a big enough focus to truly take away from the movie. The story here revolves around Dr. Robotnik, played by Jim Carrey, tricking Knuckles the Echidna into thinking Sonic is his enemy. The movie does a great job fleshing out the lore for why Knuckles is so easily persuaded and why his clash unfolds the way it does. Of course, Jim Carrey plays a great Dr. Robotnik. It really feels like he enjoys playing this character, and we see a bit of the Jim Carrey we know and love from his classic comedies. Idris Elba plays Knuckles and does a solid job as the gruff, irritable, and always serious Red Echidna. And Sonic is again played by Ben Schwartz, and he knocks it out of the park. We get the introduction of Tails, and overall it feels like Sonic 2 brings everything together, maintaining focus while simultaneously growing the universe. Sonic 2 is a truly good movie and a very solid video game adaptation. In a world where video game movies are pretty mediocre, I'm really happy we finally got one that was actually pretty good. Alright, we've made it to number 1, but before I go over my top video game adaptation of all time, let's talk a bit about what's coming in the future. Video game movies are getting better and better, with shows like The Last of Us proving that we can have truly impactful stories translate well from games to other media. We can expect a lot of game adaptations to be headed our way. Some are going to be good, some are going to be bad, and hopefully a few are great. So what do we know about right now? Well, the biggest of course is the Mario movie.
There's a huge universe out there.
So far from its trailers, it's a film that is nailing everything just right. The music, the details, the characters, everything oozes authentic Mario and has that Nintendo charm. It's safe to say it could easily become the greatest video game film of all time when it releases on April 7th, 2023. Now, outside of the Mario movie, we already have a ton of movies on the way. I'll highlight a few here, but I won't get into any rumors and speculation. Either way, we have a lot to get excited about. Now, of all games to get a film, Gran Turismo is not a franchise I would have thought of, but that's exactly what we're getting. And it actually doesn't look half bad. No, it's not some Fast and Furious ripoff. It's a movie based on the real-life events that happened when a player of the game won a competition and became a legitimate race car driver. With the focus on track racing and his story, this movie looks like it might actually be pretty decent. We also have the Borderlands movie on the way. Now, I love the Borderlands games, but this one I'm a bit more skeptical of. Directed by Eli Roth, the Borderlands movie tells a new story with characters from the game series. I'm viewing this somewhere on the level of the Jumanji remake, and maybe that's just me seeing it starring Jack Black as Claptrap and Kevin Hart as Roland, but hey, the Jumanji remake was a fun time, and if we get something on that level, I'll be okay with it. I highly doubt it'll become the greatest video game adaptation of all time, but fingers crossed that it's pretty good and it manages to capture the spirit of the video games. We also have a few movies based on huge PlayStation franchises on the way. Sony seems to be going all out with these adaptations, so I'm pretty excited all around. We have Days Gone, Ghost of Tsushima, and Death Stranding all announced to be getting the movie treatment. If any of these are treated with the same care that The Last of Us TV show has been treated with, I think we have a good chance that they could be pretty good movies. We also know Sonic 3 is on the way, and while hopefully it continues the streak from the first two films and proves to be great as well. Okay, enough is enough. Let's get on to number 1. So my top video game adaptation of all time is Detective Pikachu.
Magikarp can evolve into Gyarados. All it needs is a little kick. Water in the hole.
In my head, I saw that differently.
Hey, Tim, I don't float.
Pokemon is the biggest media franchise on the planet. It's bigger than all of Marvel, Mickey Mouse, Harry Potter, even Star Wars isn't close to Pokemon. Its reach and value is absolutely absurd. So it's really surprising that it took so long to get a film based on the franchise outside of the animated movies. It was even more shocking that they decided to go with Detective Pikachu as the first major motion picture based on Pokemon. The game was a fun spin-off, but I never would have thought of it for a movie. But it turned out to be the perfect springboard for giving us a Pokemon movie that had a good, heartfelt story. Now, having a talking Pikachu was weird for sure, but Ryan Reynolds can literally do anything, and the reasons for Pikachu's sudden linguistic ability was pretty well done. Seeing Pokemon come to life as hyper-realistic versions of the creatures we know and love was awesome, and there were some truly great moments here for me. The story revolves around Tim Goodman, played by Justice Smith, and a Pikachu that he can understand, played by Ryan Reynolds. Goodman gave up his dream of becoming a Pokemon trainer after the death of his mother and had lost contact with his father. He's alerted that his father passed away in a car accident and that Tim will need to go to Rhyme City to sort out his father's estate. There he meets his dad's Pikachu, and the two set off on a journey to unravel a huge plot revolving around Mewtwo and corrupt corporation Howard Industries. There's some pretty good twists here that I won't spoil, but it becomes a great heartfelt story that had me hooked all the way through. Overall, Detective Pikachu was a really good movie. I genuinely enjoyed it, and I hope we get more Pokemon movies in the same vein. That's it. That's my top 10 all-time movies based on video games. We haven't really gotten many that exceeded expectations, but the few we got that have were truly exceptional movies, and I think they're genuinely good, fun movies that I'm happy to rewatch again and again. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell so you can be alerted when I release more content.